Peace and love, y'all. It's your brother Avis, and we are here with another episode of What's the Word Wednesday, Season 3, Episode 10. And as we usually do, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put up the logo in the background so that we can have that. And then after that, I'm going to put the topics down in the comments and pin it. And as you're coming in, y'all let me know how y'all doing, how y'all feeling, and what's the word. And shouts out to the brother Sincerely Knows the Truth. Good to see you in here, brother. What's the word? Thank you for the merch. Thank you. I love it. I love it so far, my G. I ain't really got no white, so now I'm wearing my white right now. So shouts out to you, brother. Again, y'all come in. Let me know how y'all doing, how y'all feeling, and what's the word. And again, shouts out to all those who will watch this now and those who will watch this later, whether on Instagram or YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, go ahead, give your boy a subscribe at Avis Speaks. Because again, there's more content like this if you want to see it like this, but there'll be other things to come. So just stay tuned. Subscribe to your boy, Avis Speaks, and keep it moving. But as people are coming in as well, for today's episode, as usual, we're going to be talking about current events. And then we're going to get into two other topics, which we're going to be talking about forgetting the past. And then lastly, we're going to talk about how trauma impacts your present. So that's going to be the topics for tonight. Again, if y'all have anything that y'all want to share, whether if it's through the news, whether we're in the topics, please, when you come on, just know that this will be recorded on Instagram and YouTube. And if you're comfortable with that, then it will be here. And again, thank you for showing support, showing the love, and being present as we here for What's the Word Wednesdays. So, play some stuff in the background while we waiting. Sam Jackson, what you saying, though? So good. Straight abusive to the beat. So look, we're not talking about that again. Not at all. But yeah, man, how y'all really doing? Just let me know. Just here for another episode of What's the Word Wednesdays. I'm just excited as well as feeling a lot more up prior to all the stuff I've been seeing right now here in the news too, and just hearing from other people. Been taking time to conserve my energy as well as just relax. I always forget just to be. So hopefully y'all are having a relaxing day, relaxing week, or I like to say strength, and that y'all are just being. Don't always have to be doing something. Just be. But with that, let's go ahead. Let's do the show song. And then we're going to jump into these current events. So, here we go. Once again, if you don't know at least the chorus of this, you'll learn soon. And after a while, you won't have to hear me sing it, because there'll be a song. And it goes like, what's the word, y'all? What's the word? What's the word, y'all? What's the word? What's the word, y'all? What's the word? Tell them like, what's the word? What's the word? What you heard? We gotta know, yeah, what's the word? Once again, y'all, it's your brother Avis, and we are back with another episode of What's the Word Wednesday, Season 3, Episode 10. We at 10, y'all. And for all those here now, thank y'all. Much love for the support. I'm going to keep saying that each and every time, because your time is valuable, and I appreciate the time that you come and take, whether if it's 10 seconds all the way up until the whole time here. Appreciate your time and your support. And again, the topics for today that we are going to be getting into, we're going to be talking about current events. So I'm going to do a news portion. So this is going to take about roughly 20-30 minutes. If you do not want to know or get any updates from the news, then you can go ahead, fast forward later on. Or for those who are going to be here watching, you can go drop out for a bit and come back in another 20-30 minutes. After that, from the current events and news, we're going to get into the topics of forgetting the past. And lastly, we're going to talk about the topic of how trauma impacts your present. All very important things to speak on, especially, again, the state of the world, as well as your own self, family, all around well-being. But with that, y'all, let's go ahead. Let's get into these current events. So, for today, I have 6 articles for y'all. And every time I go through the articles, I will read the headings or the headlines so that you can later on go and check this out, as well as tell you what website that I got it from. So I'm not going to read them in full. We're only going to do 3 paragraphs and then we're out. I may read a little bit on some other ones, but 3 paragraphs and then we're out. So we got some updates from another mass shooting that has happened. I know I don't want to share all of this stuff, but I want you to start looking at all the different connections. And then we're going to be getting into some more updates on the war in Ukraine versus Russia, as well as some student loan relief and more. So let's go ahead. We're going to start off with live updates for what has happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma. If you don't know, here's the brief, which the headline in here, this is from CNN, and it's just saying live updates. Multiple people dead in shooting on Tulsa hospital campus. And this is what we know so far. At least 4 people were killed in a shooting Wednesday, just today, on a campus of St. Francis Hospital in Tulsa, Oklahoma, according to the city's police. Authorities say the shooting suspect is dead as well. And shouts out to not fully dead, not in this whole sense, but good to see you up in here. Let me know how you doing, how you feeling, what's the word. Police also say that they are continuing to clear the building and evacuate the victims. So making sure that everyone's safe and making sure that there is no more threats that can be seen or heard or is happening, again, throughout the hospital. But let's do some of the heads. Again, since I'm here, these are just live updates. I'm just going to read some of those sub headlines. If you want to go more deep into this, go to CNN and they have live updates. So the first one, it says, police arrived to the shooting scene within minutes of the first call, deputy chief says. Another one, again, it says that 4 have been killed at the Tulsa hospital campus, along with a gunman. And then there's also video that surfaced about this once it's happening. Because, again, this is all just taken out right now. But it says, video shows police running to active shooter incident with guns drawn. Other officers seen taking rifles out. So there's someone who's catching video of all of this happening. But yeah, what's up, brother? Didn't go to work today, but I'll see you tomorrow. Crazy things going on right now, though. Yo, let me know, man, when you get there, bro. But yes, there's a lot going on. That's why it's always important, or at least I like to always reiterate and just get into your mind that even if you don't watch the news or even you don't read the news, listen, all of those, some way, please get informed of what's going on around you. And you can do it to an extent where again, it doesn't overwhelm yourself, but it's great to have known rather than to have not known at all. So please keep yourself informed. But yeah, there's a lot more to be said in this, but I'm not going to put any more. If you want to, go to CNN so you can get more of the live updates from the Tulsa Hospital campus shooting. So you can check that out. And again, this is in the slew of all the other earlier shootings that have happened this month, past month, and it said between right now in 2022, I saw an article said that this is the 223rd mass shooting recorded, at least right now in 2022. So that lets you know the numbers. I'm not going to go through all of those, but you can Google this stuff. Right. Next one. And this article, again, I pick out articles that catch my eye, and I like to speak on it. If y'all have any news or any other articles that y'all like to share of what's happened, or if you just want to say some good news that has happened to you, share it in the comments. Now, this one comes from MSN, but specifically Insider. And the headline reads, Florida charter school gives away handguns, shotguns, and an AK-47 as part of a raffle. I'll say that one more time. This is a very sensational headline already. From Insider. Headline reads, Florida charter school gives away handguns, shotguns, and an AK-47 as part of raffle. Now, 3 paragraphs as usual, and we're out. So let's see what's going on. Bullet points that they have. A high school in Florida has been raffling guns to raise money. The Tallahassee Democrat reported on Wednesday, James Madison Preparatory High School gave away a $2,000 16-gauge shotgun. Last point. The raffle was briefly paused after the school shooting in Uvalde, Texas. Uvalde, I could be saying that completely wrong. Again, y'all come to also see me mispronounce this stuff at the same time. But here we go. It's a short article. I'm going to read the whole thing now. A Florida charter school has been giving away handguns, shotguns, and an AK-47 as part of a month-long fundraiser, the Tallahassee Democrat reported Wednesday, pausing briefly out of the respect for the 21 people shot to death in an elementary school in Texas. It is not clear if officials at James Madison Preparatory School, located an hour's drive east of Tallahassee, conducted any background checks before transferring the weapons to winners who entered a raffle by buying $100 tickets, the Democrat noted. So before I continue, this seems like, of course, this is going in a responsible way, but how at least it was shown in the article, or at least you read the headline, is kind of misleading. But here we go. According to the Griffiths Law Center, neither federal nor state laws require sellers who are not licensed dealers to initiate a background check when transferring a firearm. So that's, again, the interesting part with a lot of this stuff. This is in Florida, so this has got that open carry. There's different rules, jurisdictions, and standards in all different states. Cali's different from New York. New York is different from Florida. Florida is different from Oklahoma, etc. Texas as well. Here we go. Winners were announced on a Facebook live stream. On Wednesday, the school held its final drawing in a raffle, giving away a Browning A5 Sweet 16, a 16-gauge shotgun that retails for around $2,000. And this is all for fundraising. The winner's name was picked out of the raffle. Drum operated by the assistant principal. Neither White nor Principal Mark immediately responded to the insider's request for comments. The charter school has 175 students, and as of 2020 and 2021 school year, according to the National Center for Education Statistics on his Facebook, and he gives all of that there. So, in connection to, again, all of the active shooters and all of the active shootings, you also have Florida and different places in this particular school raffling off guns in connection, or not in connection, but again, around the same time that a lot of this stuff is going on, and this is to get some funding. It's just an interesting thing. I thought it was going to go off talking about literally to the students, but where'd you raffle to the students? This has to be to the parents and those who are responsible with the guns. But again, just wanted to share that article. This is also going on while all else is happening. But if y'all want to read, it's Insider is the website, and the article title is Florida Charter Schools gives away handguns, shotguns, and an AK-47 as part of raffle. All right. Now, next article. And I'm also going to read the headlines with these two, or I should say the subtopics in the headlines. So, next article comes from NPR, and this is again around the Ukraine and Russia situation. The headline reads, "The U.S. is sending advanced rocket systems to Ukraine, but not to be shot into Russia. Pay attention. Pay attention." Again, 3, and we're out. Article reads, as Russia's invasion of Ukraine nears the 100-day mark, the U.S. is sending Ukraine more advanced weaponry in hopes of strengthening its position on the battlefield and at the negotiating table. President Joe Biden wrote in a Tuesday New York Times opinion essay that the more advanced rocket systems and mutilations, basically talk about ammunition, will enable Ukrainians to make more precision strikes on a battlefield targets in their own country. He went on to outline what the U.S. will and won't do when it comes to the war in Ukraine. The president stressed that we are not encouraging or enabling Ukraine to strike beyond its borders, while Senator administration officials separately said that Ukraine gave assurances it would not use the missiles to strike inside of Russia. So I'm going to read just the headlines again, or the sub-headlines, and then we're going to continue on from there. So what is the U.S. sending? What is Russia saying? Why announce it in a newspaper column? All very valid questions. But again, if you did not check and see before, there has been a lot of military aid as well as financial aid sent to Ukraine by the U.S., whether if it's through different bills, certain acts to help with them because they are part of NATO. So that is the support the U.S. is giving to them. And again, there's a lot of allocation of that to help them stand their ground. But y'all be the judge on this. But again, this article comes from NPR, and the headline reads, the U.S. is sending advanced rocket systems to Ukraine, but not to be shot into Russia. Always pay attention to what is being stated, because it is being stated for a reason. But yes. How you doing, Kundan? Good to see you in here. What's the word? I'm glad that you are here. Let me know how you doing and how you feeling. So, we keeping it rolling on. Now, with all of the guns, warfare, and all of that going on, I'll move to a other lighter note. And this is for all my students out there, all my college grads, everybody that's having to deal with student loan debt. But for a number of you, this article is for you, or specific for you, I should say, because it's a particular school. But again, this article comes from US Today. Headline reads, Billions in student loans erased for students preyed upon by Corinthian colleges. Most relief yet by White House. So, again, 3 paragraphs and we're out. And that's how it goes. Article headline reads, anyone who borrowed money to attend a school owned by Corinthian colleges, a for-profit institution with a long history of defrauding students before its sudden closure in 2015, will have their federal student loans canceled. The mass discharge is the largest amount of debt that the federal government has erased in one action, benefiting more than 500,000 borrowers to the tune of $5.8 billion. While our actions today will relieve Corinthian colleges victims of their burdens, the Department of Education is actively ramping up oversight to better protect today's students from tactics and make sure that for-profit institutions, which honestly, my school was also for-profit. So I'm about to see, because my school is just closing down as well, that I ain't got to pay back any loans. So let's put that out there, you know. Let's cross it to be out there, y'all. Let's put that out there. And the corporations that own them never again get away with such abuse, said Education Secretary Miguel Cardona. I'm going to leave it there. If you want to see more and hear more about this, again, this article comes from US Today. And the headline reads, "Billions in student loans erased for students preyed upon by Corinthian colleges. Most relief yet by White House." So that's that there. Now, before I move on to the next one, if y'all have any articles, again, please throw them down in the comments so that they can be shared. As well as if you just have anything good that you would like to talk about, throw it down in the comments. And I'm talking to y'all that's watching this later as well on Instagram and YouTube and wherever you see this video. All right. But let's see. Another news. The company that manufactures the AR-15 that again, I'm terrible when it's Uvalde Terror used, was paid for by the Pentagon in a $9 million contract as recently as March 23rd. Again, thank you for sharing that. And I'm not surprised, because look at how much money we put into our budget when it comes to military and guns, ammunition, etc. And that's also not only the military, but also police forces. So then if you have that happening, then you have a distributor even closer. So I'm not surprised a lot of this is going on. Because where's all this money coming from? How is it being allocated? How's it being spent? You get the picture. Connect the pictures. Connect the dots. Connect 4. Connect 25. However many you got to connect. But there it is. But thank you for sharing that. Now I got two more for y'all. One of them is this update and the final result, at least from what I'm reading the headline to be, from the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial. So again, give 3 paragraphs and we're out. And then the last one I found interesting, again, about something in Australia that was dope. So I'm going to share it. So this article comes from CNN Entertainment. Headline reads, "Legal victory for Johnny Depp after he and Amber Heard found liable for defamation." And defamation of character, basically, again, when you defame somebody, that means you're putting terrible reputation, false accusations, as well as just saying very terrible things about the person and putting it out there for people to see and ruining their reputation. Defamation in that particular case. So, 3 paragraphs and we're out. Article reads, "Your jury has found both Amber Heard and Johnny Depp liable for defamation in their lawsuits against each other." You see what they did there? The jury awarded significantly more damages to Depp, a legal win for the actor. Depp sued Heard, his ex-wife, for defamation over a 2018 op-ed she wrote for the Washington Post, in which she described herself as a public figure representing domestic abuse. Though Depp was not named in the article, he claims it cost him lucrative acting roles, which it did. Heard countersued her husband for defamation over statements Depp's attorney made about her abuse claims. The jury found that Heard defamed Depp in 3 separate statements in the Washington Post piece, and that Depp defamed Heard with 1 statement his attorney made. The jury awarded Depp $10 million in compensatory damages and $5 million in punitive damages. The jury awarded Heard $2 million in compensatory damages and no money for punitive damages. Let me read that one more time for y'all. The jury awarded Depp $10 million in compensation damages and $5 million in punitive damages, while the jury awarded Heard $2 million in compensation damages and no money for punitive damages. I can say more here. I'm gonna let y'all read the rest of the article. I'm gonna give my point that I'm gonna say to this one paragraph here, and then we'll move on to the last article. So again, if you want to read more about this, CNN is where you gotta go. Entertainment. Headline reads, legal win for Johnny Depp after he and Amber Heard found liable for defamation. So that one that I just read, it showed that she defamed him, or defamation, 3 times, 3 separate accounts. In his particular case, 1 account, and it wasn't even him, it was his attorney. So he's awarded $10 million, but then $5 million is taken away because of those punitive. She's awarded $2 million, but then she has nothing taken away. That just still lets you know that even though they say it is a legal win, you can still see how the games are being played with this justice system when it comes to domestic violence or intimate partner abuse, all of those different things. You still see that is almost still a quieting of when it comes to the man having this happen to them versus when it is the woman. Yes, I'm just giving an observation. If you want to get at me, go look at CNN, MSN, all these other different places that are getting it. Go look at it. This is what's at least here, and I'm interpreting it this way. If you got another one, y'all put it down in the comments for me. But yeah, other than that, y'all, this is that article. We're out. That was just my quick thought I wanted to share with that. Now let me see. We got in here the next updates we have in here. And in astrology news, Mercury retrograde ends and then goes direct right on your birthday, which again, happy early solar return to you, Kundan. Thank you for being up in here. Always appreciate you. Communications will be more smooth again, especially in tech such as apps and devices. Good to know. Saturn goes back into retrograde in Aquarius on June 5th until July 12th, where it transits back into Capricorn and sits there for the rest of the year. There it is, y'all. There it is. What's going on, Puna? Good to see you in here, brother. Welcome to What's the Word, my G. How you doing? Hope all is well with you. But yeah, says yeah, basically Johnny Depp won, but it's so confusing how much he actually gets. Yeah, it's a turnaround. It's a turnaround. That's all I'm going to calling it. It's a turnaround. It's like, yeah, but then now turn back around. And that was it. Cool. Last article for y'all. Again, an interesting topic. Because I've heard, this is one other thing I've been hearing about Australia. So we're going to talk about it. 3 paragraphs and we'll be out. This article comes from CNN World. And the headline reads, world's largest plant discovered in Australia. Largest plant. We'll see. Article reads, the world's largest living plant has been identified in the shallow waters off the coast of Western Australia. According to scientists, the sprawling seagrass, a marine flowering plant known as Poseidona australis. I think I finally got a scientific name down. Finally, I was playing. Maybe. stretches for more than 112 miles, which is 180 kilometers for my folks that's out in the UK and other areas. In Shark Bay, a wilderness area protected as a World Heritage Site. Good, said Elizabeth Sinclair, a senior research fellow at the School of Biological Sciences and Oceans Institute at the University of Western Australia. That's about the distance between San Diego and Los Angeles. What a comparison. The plant is so large because it clones itself, creating genetically identical offshoots. This process is a way of reproducing that is so rare in the animal kingdom. Although it happens in certain environmental conditions and occurs more often among some plants, fungi, and bacteria. Now again, there's a lot more about this plant, but why I wanted to also look into this or speak on this again, because there's also a fruit that has also been found in a deep forest in Australia that has the properties to cure cancer or have some type of remedy to get close to it. So I've been hearing a lot of this coming from Australia, so wanted to share this as well. I thought it's pretty cool. So it's the largest plant, and it's the distance between San Diego and Los Angeles. That's pretty cool. But other than that, y'all, that has all been the news. If you want to look at this article again in particular, it's in CNN, and the headline reads, "World's Largest Plant Discovered in Australia." But with that, y'all, that is all the news that I have for this segment of current events for What's the Word. If y'all have any more that y'all like to share, please throw down in the comments, as well as if you have a comment on any of these articles, please, this is the first time I'm going to end up saying it, leave the timestamp of where you have that argument or that point and put it down in the comments. I'm going to do that. Right. As I'm waiting for that and that's going on, we're going to move to the next topic for tonight, which next topic we're going to be talking about is forgetting the past. Now, before getting into the topic, again, disclaimer, if you would like to come on, just know that this will be uploaded on Instagram and YouTube, other different places. So if you're not comfortable with seeing or having your face out there like that, then it's okay. You can stay in the comments and have your points to talk with all of us and discuss from there. If you're comfortable, just know that you are waiving away those rights and you will be on those platforms. But if we're good with that, we are good to go. Again, we're going to get into the topic of forgetting the past. Now, when we're thinking about forgetting the past, we're going to go through a whole slew of stuff. But when you hear that whole phrase, forgetting the past, what are words, thoughts that come to mind when you hear that phrase, forgetting the past? Put it down in the comments. Put it down there. Boom. Thank you for making my birthday real, so that my own original becomes a trending audio. More than welcome, Kundan. More than welcome. And related Instagram news, so we're going to pop back and forth real quick. Instagram now has 90-second reels. Head of Instagram also announced algorithm will now favor more original content. The two changes go hand in hand. There it is. If y'all wanted some more Instagram news, if you're on Instagram, if you don't care about Instagram, well then it don't matter to y'all, but here's some updated news. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. Now again, when y'all hear forgetting the past, what comes to mind? And while you're doing that, what do you think we're going to specifically, or asking to yourself, okay, what are we specifically going to talk about when it comes to forgetting the past? Well, let's break down that phrase real quick. We got the first part, which is forgetting. And when we think about forgetting, in this particular case, sometimes it's in a sense of a negative aspect. Of we want something to not come back or show up again. So we set it aside. We put it in our rear view. And we push forward and just try to erase it as possible. Don't let it hold us down. And when to forget something is not to remember it. You may have some last bit of pieces left there, but for the most part, you don't have a good memory of it. Now, when we think about the past, then what happened? Whether if it's your childhood, whether if it's teen, whether if you're still a teen right now, it's just some teens y'all watching it, as well as where you are now. Even the last few seconds I just spoke, that's the past. It's very interesting how time moves, or at least this concept of time that's been created in this sense. Yes, I'm getting already off of it, but again, when we think about the past, is it something that you look forward to? Which you don't because you look back, but as in, does it make you feel great? Or is it something that makes you feel nervous? What does that bring up? In this particular case, talking about in the past, can be something, again, that you're not ready for. You see the topic kind of lining up with the other one we're going to speak about later. You'll get a snippet, or you're getting an idea of, okay, where this could go. But yes. So let's see. We see it says, it's supposed to be for healing if the past is too dramatic, but we got to learn from the past too. Exactly. The past is very important to help inform you of what's happening in the present moment so that you can be properly prepared for the future to come. Because if you do not know where you started or how you started, it is very hard for you to build a road, a plan, and a blueprint on where you're going to be going next. That's with anything. But thank you for that point. But when we're speaking about forgetting the past, I'm going to start off. I like to start doing it now, and y'all can stop me if y'all don't want to be like, oh, don't go down that particular way. But I like using the 5 W's and adding the how as well in there. So we're going to go get into forgetting the past in that particular case. So we're going to talk about the who in particular when it comes to who's forgetting the past. And in this sense, when I'm thinking about who forgets the past, it's us. There's a lot of us. Whether our past is about our ancestors, whether our past is about something that's traumatic, whether if our past is about what happened last year or the last 2 years that seemed to pass by so fast with the pandemic, or any situation or experience that you had, it starts with you. So you're the person that can be forgetting that past. And again, that is an action. To forget is something that you do. It doesn't just necessarily happen, but it's something that you do. So you are the person. We are the people that can forget that past. We can't. Again, if you wanted to relive on, that's why you have passing it down, remembering it, whether if it's through storytelling, shouts out Kundan, whether if it's through traditions, art, whatever it may be of the past. So in this sense, it's forgetting the past. So we are those people. And it says, I was just watching a video yesterday on therapeutic storytelling for healing the past. It's a part of a larger Udemy course. We in sync. That's just how it goes every single time. Chino Lokes, I see you in here, 310. What's going on, brother? Good to see you here. What's the word? As well as Jimmy 2-Step in the building. What's the word? Good to see y'all up in here. Welcome to What's the Word Wednesdays. Thank you. But yes, it's always like that, Kundan. All the time. You be on point. Right. Got the who. Now it's the what. What are we forgetting in the past? Or what do we want to forget about the past? It depends on how you want to answer and ask that question. Again, the what? It's a numerous different things. Whether if it's the time that you got into a really terrible car accident. Maybe it's the time that you just had an embarrassing moment, whether you were a kid or an adult, either it's a party, wherever it may end up being, and then you either fell or you did something that's so embarrassing that, again, you do not want to bring that up. So that can be what you might not want to end up bringing up. Shouts out to It's Regular. Good to see you in here, brother. What's the word? Hope all is well with you. That also what that you're trying to do, again, with forgetting the past, or what do you want to forget about the past? Again, it's to put something off to the back because it may be weighing heavy on you. It may be something that, again, now that you've outgrown, that you don't need to readdress. You either wear it with you on your sleeve, metaphorically, or you know that it's there in your mind as an experience, again, that tells a larger picture or a larger story of what has actually happened when people ask about why are you the type of person that you are now, or what have you seen and experienced that may be similar to me when it came to food, whether it came to school, anything in those particular cases. And that experience that you want to put in the past, again, there's something that's there. You can say, we'll say this on that proverbial shelf. It's a book that's there on that shelf that, again, you're already done. You read it thoroughly back and forth, forwards and backwards 5,000 times, however many times you did, and you're good. You're just going to leave the book where it needs to be. It's there on that shelf, and you don't need to. You put it probably on the highest part of that shelf or even on the lowest part. So, again, you don't have a view of it, but it's there, but you're like, I've had enough. It can be that what? It can be about a person. It can be about a relationship that you want to forget. Again, it's not like it's going to just disappear completely from your mind and be fully erased. But the lessons that were taught or picked up, or if you didn't, something that you got away from that relationship will remain. It don't have to be specifically that person or remembering that, I should say. But the lessons in itself sometimes can be the reminder if you don't want to. But again, some of these things will show up in some way, shape, or form, and it has molded you into the person that you are. Even if you don't want to give it credit or let it shine any type of light on how it's helped change you, it has. Ultimately, every single thing has had some type of effect on you, whether positive, negative, or neutral. It's been there. But let's see, he said, I even brought a book, Therapeutic Metaphors, from their recommended reading list. Always with the books. Always love it. Always love it. I love how the Chinese see the past as not behind them, but in front of them. I do remember this point that you did speak about before. So they can actually learn from the past. And that's such a great perspective to flip it. A great diagram as well as a paradigm shift is to look at it that particular way versus how we see it in a linear, it's behind and we're looking forward towards the future. I like that. Even our cultural times arrow perception can impact how we see and feel the past. Yes, there's always different impacts to how we experience things. Whether if it was raining, whether if it's cold, whether if it's a particular smell, that could be a nostalgic smell, whether if it's what we've seen. All of our senses play a part into how we experience an experience. It is. So I agree to that. I agree to that point. So with the what and what you are trying to forget about the past, all delves into the next one, which I'll leave the why for later. When did you forget this experience in the past? Now that all puts more into a specific timeline in your life where that experience happened, that memory happened for you to play around with. When was it? Again, was it your childhood? Was it when you was 10 years old? Was it when you were 15 and you were just going to a new state or a new country or a new place? Again, it's different for everyone else. But the time referencing is also very important, because look at who you are now to where you were in the past and see how much, again, you were either shaped by that part in the past to how it's affected you now, what you can take away from what happened if you are. Again, this is getting to a point where with forgetting the past, you see that as much as if you want to forget the past and you want to get away from it, or if you just want to forget it because now you have stepped over and you stepped forward past it, you're going to get some learning piece from it if you reach out for it. And it's there. So now, let's see. Got another comment said, it made me write a experiment poem shifting time's arrow as vertical instead of being horizontal. Again, think of vertical, the horizon. If you want to share that, you can share that too as well, Kundan. If you want to, you can put that so we can get a perspective on it. Or if you have it, I'll just share it again later on. So thank you for putting that there too. But the win, anywhere that you had that experience in that time frame, it will be there. Okay? Cycle. But is that right? So after that, we're also bringing in
Hello.
Kundan. How are you doing? What's the word?
That's the word, yeah. Yeah, I'm
Good
excited
to
for my
see you.
birthday and the reel I made yesterday. Since then, I also have made two more all original audio reels. This time, I've even made 90-second music tracks. It's my longest yet that I've made. I'll be posting that.
Mm.
Uh, yeah,
Well, I'm glad
but
to hear that.
yeah, I'm excited. Yeah.
Configure. But yes. So, what are your thoughts and points on forgetting the past? I was going through the who, what, when, where, how, and why, because at
Yeah.
least it gives me some type of grounding for y'all, so it don't always seem like I'm rambling too much, but at least it's somewhere.
Yeah, I was thinking about how even horizontal versus vertical, right? Because
Yeah.
first of all, back to front versus the front to back, right? Even that can shift, right?
Hmm.
Shifts the way the past impacts you, right? Where in Westerners see the past behind them, so they don't really learn from the past. They keep making the same mistakes over and over again, and they're running away from the past, which is why we keep banning books and things like that, right?
Yes.
So, and then they see the future as in
Shinobi.
front of them, so they keep running towards the future. That leads to overproductivity and things like that, right?
Yes.
Uh, and overwork and all that, workaholism. Whereas the Chinese apparently see the past is in front of them so they can actually see the past and learn from the past. But simultaneously, they see the past, the future is behind them. So they're not running towards the future, but more like they're sitting and waiting for the future to catch
Okay.
up to them. Meaning they
Mm.
have a lot of meditation practices where they can, sit still and let the creativity of their future self give them ideas. That's kind of the idea behind
Mm.
sitting still and letting the future uh, wait to catch up with you. It's not like you're doing nothing. You're still doing something, but you wait first and then you take action, right?
It's really in the sense of being. They're just
Right.
being.
Yeah. hmm In fact, there's a book that I just found called, haven't read all of it, but I think it's called The Art of Becoming While Being. So you need both. You need to be and you need to become. So I love the title alone. So
That is
yeah,
a
so I
very
wrote this
powerful
poem.
title.
I want to read it to you. Yeah. I want to read it to you because I thought about what if we flip it a whole other level instead
Yes.
of horizontal timeline and I'll make it vertical and what would happen. So I started thinking different things and that's how I ended up with this. Um,
Right. Here we go, yo.
and this is, yeah. When I thought of the past as above me and future below me, the past at first felt like a burden pushing me down.
Mm.
Then I saw it differently. The past as sunlight and air, nourishing me, giving me structure, rooting me into the future, growing me, becoming me.
Mm.
Now, what if I reverse this? Past below me and future above me. Then the past as the entire earth beneath my feet, my cultural, family, social, tribal roots underneath me, feeding me, water of life, seeding the future,
Mm.
growing, the plant, the tree that is me, growing palms that feed more, and wind from its trunk that expresses its wisdom, also nourishing the ecosystem that makes it possible for the sunlight to keep shining and nourishing more palms and other trees and more. An endless cycle of circular infinite timelines, non-linear, nourishing each other, not only the past nourishing the future, but perhaps the future nourishing the past.
That's beautiful. When you did that flip, that was one of
Mm-hmm.
the first few things that came to my mind about being rooted. Right when you did it, when you speaking on it, that's like what came into my mind. Which again, what a beautiful way to turn that on its head and then have it where the future is nurturing the past in that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you for sharing
Yeah,
that, Kundan.
yeah,
But this is
yeah.
all again in the whole line in the idea of when we think about forgetting the past, how do we explain that to ourselves? Or how do we want to go about, again, figuring out why would we want to forget something that happened in the past, knowing that we can look at it from multiple perspectives of how it can help inform or how it can also hinder, depending on how you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah, like
anything
we
else that you
literally, I
had?
think, we literally forget the past, even if we don't consciously want to or are not consciously trying to. I
Mm,
think
mm,
just because of the way the mind and the brain works, like I mentioned the other time about the reticular activating
yes,
mechanism in the brain, where because we're receiving billions of bits of data all the time,
yes.
and the brain can only like process about a small percentage of it. It processes by deleting, distorting, and generalizing. That's why even the present is not always seen so clearly, right? That's why
Mm,
eyewitness reports are not always reliable. And that's why
yes.
even that experiment that I mentioned last time about the two teams playing basketball, and and when you're asked to count their passes between the balls, you only see that, and then no one saw the big person in the big gorilla suit, you know thumping their chest. like it was right in the middle of the screen and no one saw it because it completely deleted that information because that was not what you were asked to see, right? You were asked to only
Mm,
see the two teams passing the balls, right?
yes.
So I think if that's true about the very recent past that happened just a minute ago, right?
Yeah.
Imagine how much it deletes and distorts and generalizes, you know, the far past, right? Like our childhood, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
even the collective past, right? Like even something that happened like 40 years ago can be easily erased and rewritten. I think I mentioned to you that the son of the dictator, the former dictator of the Philippines, just became president in the Philippines, which is
Mm,
like so shocking. And how he did
of
it,
a 40.
how his
Yeah.
yeah, his family, his entire family did it for him collectively. They erased and rewrote the past by putting on narratives on YouTube and Facebook, all of these conspiracy theories and all of these different things, and basically trying to convince the people that the 9 years of martial law was a peaceful time.
Mm,
What's incredible about that is that the people who lived during those times are still alive, right? And
yeah.
yet, this small group of people was still able to erase and rewrite the past because the
Yeah.
younger generation doesn't remember anymore.
Mm,
I mean, the younger generation doesn't remember because they weren't even alive. So, and this is why it's so important to respect our elders too, I think, to learn from them too.
yeah. Very
Yeah.
true. And I'm glad that you brought that up because, again, if not, I was going to continue just going whatever I was going on. But I'm glad that you brought up, again, the limited memory capacity that we have in the human brain and how everything is not going to be fully remembered in full detail. Because, again, how our memories work for some people, it's, completely different depending on heredity, et cetera, all the different variables. But a lot of this stuff, like whether if it's chunking, like you're trying to remember for a test, think of it as a table. You put on a certain lot of information that you're trying to learn for this test, and you set it out on a table. Say your table's full already with all the information you learned from that test. If you try to add any more to that, it falls off the other side of the table. So the same thing with all the experiences that we end up having as well in life. We're not going to fully have the full on down to the details. Yes, you're going to have some type of generalizations, but you have to be careful because then you can also falsify your own memories and your own past when something didn't actually happen in your past. And that's where you got to watch out of taking up other people's past and remixing it, thinking that it actually happened to you when you vicariously lived through them. And I can say for me, for an example, how that happened, and I was able to, again, correct it very quickly because I knew I was tripping, was as a kid, I remember going to the park and going to go see my cousin play for a Little League baseball team he was a part of, was the Twins. And for a moment and for a while, I thought I was the one on the team as well, playing with my cousin, which I don't know how I got that memory. When people be asking me ever, like, did you ever play baseball or do any type of other sport? I would bring that up. But then I was like, wait, no, I didn't play baseball. That was my cousin. So sometimes you got to be mindful of you can be just adding your own type of memories on top of that. And I know there's a phenomenon or there's actually a term for that. I don't know in particular what it's called, but you can falsify your own memories in your past, which can also, again, create some issues.
Right, or even how cops, like I think John Oliver just did an episode recently on how even cops can coerce or false confessions from
Mm,
suspects, and they end up, going to jail uh, just on their own confession. And it's like you put somebody, in the small room, interrogate them for hours, sleep deprive them, don't give them food. Eventually, they'll say anything to get out of that situation. And they might
yeah.
even start believing what the cops are saying too. It's like a whole other level of gaslighting, changing their reality.
Mm, wow. It's a very, very tricky thing, y'all. Your mind, your memory, and how people experience, again, an experience that they have. So,
Yeah, yeah.
forgetting
It's
the past.
inception.
Yeah, and shouts out, I finally watched that movie. Y'all are going to get on me about that too. I
Inception.
know Inception
Wait,
came out in
you haven't seen it?
2010.
What?
Look, hold on, y'all. Hold on. I just recently watched it. It's like a week and a half ago. I finally watched the movie after it came out in 2010. Yeah, I'm just letting y'all know now. I'm terrible when it comes to movies. So if y'all want me to watch a movie or sit down for something, somebody has to be there with me, or I have to be fully motivated for a certain reason. But I finally watched the movie, and now I got a deeper context into it, which that's such a great movie to bring up at this point too, because spoilers for anybody, and again, this is 12 years. So if you haven't seen it in the 12 years, besides, of course, the
You've had
kids who
time.
haven't heard about it, too bad. It's past overdue. But one of the deeper things in that movie was about learning how to go into lucid dreaming and going deeper, deeper, deeper into layers of dreams to a point where you're living in a dream world, but then you don't know if you're truly wide awake. But when you go deep down into that, not only are you creating memories, there's also ways for you to influence, also to falsify memories. But in the main character's case, which was Leonardo DiCaprio, it was a whole setup with his wife and finding out that he ended up setting in that false memory of her just being dull with what has happened in life and wanting to get away and stuff, and how that influenced her. And he had a regret, as well as just that deep sense of wanting to hide what has happened and not address it. And you see how much it affects him throughout the movie. I'm not going to say the whole thing, but this is such a great way to talk about how forgetting things in particular can have such an impact, again, on your present. But this is later on down the line. But yes, y'all.
Yeah, and okay, this is not a spoiler. I don't think it is because it's in the synopsis itself. I think where
Yeah.
inception is basically the opposite of extraction. Where in that in that world that they created, there's a lot of these dream thieves that usually commit extraction, where they would go inside somebody's dream and steal a password or an idea so that they can,
Yeah.
get their bank accounts and things like that. That's usually what happens. But inception is the opposite. It's more rare, where and that's why you have to go through three layers of dreams, right? You
Yeah.
cannot just do, there's the first layer like you would in extraction. You have to go into the dream, inside the dream, inside the dream, and then plant an idea, right?
Yes.
Plant, that's inception. Now, the funny thing is, like I said, I was just learning about therapeutic storytelling,
Yeah.
and this is a double-edged sword. It can also be used for manipulation, right? Inception is real in the sense
Yes.
that in real life, instead of dreaming, you use tracking realities via storytelling to commit inception on people. Basically, remember when I talked about open loops and closed loops in storytelling? The funny thing is, when
Oh,
you
yeah.
open a loop inside a story, you're more open to suggestion. And the deeper the layer, so what you do is when you stack realities, you tell a story within a story within a story, three layers of story, similar to Inception. Instead of a dream within a dream within a dream,
Yeah.
you tell a story within a story within a story. And in each story, in each layer, you open a loop. You don't finish your story, right? And then in the
Yeah.
third layer of the story, that's when you plant the idea. Then you close the loop. So you close the third story, the second story, and the third. You go back up, and that's how you commit inception in real life, or stacking reality.
Multiple stories, multiple episodes playing around in the same way, and two of them not having a solution until you get to the third one to finally be able to find that solution to loop all of
Called
them back to
nested
the
loop.
top.
Yeah. It's also known as nested loops. Yeah.
It can happen, y'all. That's why look at these movies as well, y'all. give y'all
That's why
very
be very careful
important.
with the movies and TV shows you watch. Like
Yes.
for me, that's why I stopped watching a lot of colonial TV shows like
Tyrant,
Amazon,
Huey P, Sam.
Hello. Yeah. Yeah, there's some like TV shows and movies that I've stopped watching. Uh, the more I realize how much colonial programming there is in these shows,
Yeah.
and the more I realize about the power of story and the power of planting suggestions through a story. It's like
Yeah.
I've got to be really careful what media I consume. Like,
Yes. So yeah, nah, very, very, very true. And again, that's why it's between me and everyone again of taking your time to put that information and be able to share all of this happening and going while at the same time knowing that if you're not going to want to share or even see some of this stuff, again, you have the power to not have to do any of that in particular. So you choose, because again, you have all the senses from your body, whether see, smell, taste, touch, all of that, they all have an influence. So if you don't want to influence something or you don't want to be influenced by something, then you just don't consume it. Okay? So
right.
that's just
Yeah.
how it goes, end up going there. But continuing on about forgetting the past, because I know I went with the who, what, the when, and it's at the where. I didn't particularly talk about the where, but it doesn't, I mean, you can. You can speak specifically on where again, because for some people, it also can be associated with certain types of physical things, whether if it can be water, whether it can end up being by some people fire in the car, all
Yeah.
these different places too. Again, these are what we can
Where
also
the
call
places
triggers.
where the trauma happened. Yeah. Or where the
Yes,
triggers happen. Yeah.
yes,
And also
or
for
again,
immigrants like me, the past is in a different country.
yes. So all of that being able to shape whether again, if you're forgetting the past or not, which I still agree with your point, Kundan, again, of that sometimes it's not done intentionally, it just happens over time. Cause you remind yourself, or it's just I ain't gonna say sometimes it just didn't have much of importance. Some things like it's very trivial in our lives that we just don't
Yeah.
remember it like that, and it
Sometimes
just,
it's so
makes us
traumatic
exit.
or guilt inducing that we literally like build like psychological locked rooms behind what we don't want to
Yeah.
remember. In fact, that's literally the premise behind season 2 of Star Trek Picard, where he's never in the entire Star Trek canon, right? Star Trek series, in all the series, he's never really had, a long-term relationship, even though he's this very talented leader and captain and all that. He's never really had this healthy long-term, relationship. He always like avoids,
Mm.
right? Or holds back. And then in season 2 of Star Trek Picard, which is like one of the newest Star Trek, you know, shows, we finally
Yes.
learn why for the first time as an audience. Because we get to see his childhood and what happened, and it's like, oh, he did something that caused, somebody that he really loved to die, but he was just a kid and he didn't realize this would happen, right? And but he blamed it on himself. So and he didn't want to face the guilt, so he literally created a locked room where even he couldn't remember properly what happened. And then so he
Wow.
didn't know why he would be avoiding close relationships. Almost like he doesn't want to repeat what happened to him in childhood. But even he didn't know why until like, this super being Q forced him to confront the past.
Man, such a great example, because then now it's reminding me, and I bring it up a lot because I still like to give this video game franchise its credit to a certain level.
Mm,
But Assassin's Creed, their
mm,
franchise has done a really good job of again honing in on that whole idea of not only going back to your past and learning from your past to help you again move forward in your future, whether if you're elevated in the game and you're learning to be in tune with your ancestor or a past predecessor that came before, before you. But there's also points in the game where they call them repressed memories, which that's a term that is used. It could be updated terms that's there for it. But that happens sometimes where you've put something down so deep that honestly, you even forgot why you even pushed it down that deep. But
Exactly.
something happens where you either meet an experience or an obstacle in real life that again triggers or starts that action of that memory to come back up again. And depending on how ready you are, which sometimes again it's a repressed memory. Some people don't even know they have repressed memory. I can say I don't even know if that's the particular case. But once it starts to show, again, it's either you're ready for it or you're not. And then you come to figure out, okay, what was that in particular? And sometimes again, it can happen spontaneously. You never know when this stuff. You can't just schedule and be like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna feel my repressed memory come up in about another 3 months. I'll be ready in another 3 months. You never know when. And again, some of us, I'll say this, some of us may not have went through such a hardship in life that that's not a necessary thing. Again, there's levels to all of this that happens. But I just want to again give a shout out to Assassin's Creed because again they've done a really good job of being able to show you that line of not only history within the characters that they're coming up and building on, but also small pieces of whether if it's like memories and how to connect and again these ideas of how sometimes even if you do forget your past, it's still there somewhere. And then after a while, if it hasn't been touched, locked, or even addressed, it does slowly fade away. Slowly. It might be a percent of a percent of a percent of a like point. It can still be there, but you would never know unless it's something that's very urgent or something that's very nagging to you and you can feel it.
Hmm. Yeah, that's why I said that the past, like all the programs and beliefs that we picked up from the past, basically the meanings that we gave to past events, eventually become programs that run us or beliefs that run us. So the past is basically running us, uh, whether we forget it or not.
Mm,
And the issue is that most people have basically forgotten their past, at least on that subconscious level, right? Which is why it's so important to face it, and you can use various techniques like hypnotherapy or belief reframing, like I do with my clients, Akashic Records. I do that for clients, but
mm-hmm.
but that requires more professional help, right? Another way that you can do that, almost kind of like a do-it-yourself,
Yeah.
is it's like the storytelling where because we use stories not just to escape reality, but to navigate reality, right? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
how we learn. But simultaneously, when you read a relatable story that's similar to your own life experience,
Yeah.
right? But you know it's happening to a fictional character, right? Especially with fiction, right?
Yes.
You know it didn't really happen. So that provides a buffer for you to face your past. At least it was for me, like when I read
Mm,
the Parable series with you and when I did the book club. Like
yes.
I told you, the main story is about, rebuilding after loss, after massive losses, at least twice in this character's life, right?
Yes.
And and for me, as somebody who grew up in a military dictatorship where the government seized my grandparents' assets and their businesses, and then I grew up in a lot of my parents were kind of more stable. Things were like had become relatively more stable. But at the same time, there was the 1988 democracy uprising, right? All of these
Mm,
things happened. I literally witnessed people like running through our compound as using it as a thoroughfare or a way through to
yeah.
get to the government warehouse next door and start looting stuff, right, from the government. And so I grew up like really afraid of loss. And the funny
Mm,
thing is how some people who might grow up like that might become very like greedy and stingy and try to like make as much money as they can, right? That's
Yeah.
one response to loss, which is understandable. But the other response to loss, right, which is also understandable, which is what happened to me, where I felt like, oh, I can lose at any time anyway, so what's the point? So I never really saved a lot of money in my life. Like I would
Mm,
just spend it quickly after I make money, because I was like, well, some government or some entity can just seize it any time. So what's the point of savings and investments and all that, right? It's not up to
mm,
my control. But reading Octavia's,
series.
provided me, like, yeah, those series by the Parable series by Octavia Butler, like Parable of the Sower and the sequel Parable of Talent. I didn't even realize fully how much this program was running me until I read those two books, two stories.
Mm,
And because of that distance, that buffer, I was able to face the past and remember more of what happened, and but also not just remember, but reframe it to like, oh, you know what? I have the strength to rebuild. And in fact, as long as I keep networks of community and try to build community all the time, then I'll always have the support to rebuild after loss. That is
yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for showing again your own therapeutic process of you
Mhm.
coming to that realization through reading, through storytelling, and how you went about doing that so then you can be aware of it. Because again, that's the first key with y'all is awareness, knowing that
Awareness.
there's
Yeah.
something there that needs to be addressed for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Because yeah, therapy and coaching and healing can be expensive for some people. So while you're saving up money and stuff for therapy and stuff like that,
Which again,
and coaching and
we are
healing,
not.
yeah, which we're not.
But yeah, again,
At
so
least
y'all,
not
so
in
just
this
know when we're
capacity.
talking, yeah, when we're doing this
Yeah,
again,
yeah, yeah,
we're not saying this is this. We are not no certified doctors, therapists, or anything in this
right,
particular case. We
yeah,
are two individuals, again, sharing our thoughts and our own perspectives
yeah.
and
Just
experiences. So
sharing our
if you,
experiences.
again,
Yeah,
so if you, again,
yep,
not only are tuned to this, y'all gravitate to it, or if it makes you, again, feel a certain way, take your time to go ahead and address when needed. And just know that, again, we're letting you know.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and also, because this is from our personal life experiences, it may not work for
Yes.
everyone. We're only talking about what works for me, like, for us, right? So yeah, so in lieu of, uh, things like therapy and coaching and healing, things like that, in the meantime, reading relatable stories to help you face your past and change the meaning you gave it can be something you can do, a do-it-yourself approach that you can do in the meantime. That's what I think.
Mm, yeah. And that's that there.
Mhm.
Now, I'm going to do the why. Why would someone or anyone want to forget the past? Why?
I kind of made a reference to it, which is when I was talking about Captain Picard or even my own experience, because
Yes.
for some of us it's so traumatic that we not only forget it, we forgot that we forgot it. It's a whole level, another level of inception, right? The layers within layers. Not only did we forget it, we forgot that we forgot it. Like,
Mm. The metacognition of cognition that you thought, but then you didn't really thought because you didn't have that thought to even start off with because someone gave you that thought. But are you sure you had it?
yeah.
Any other reasons we can think of why would somebody want to forget the past besides the double, triple layers of I just forgot?
Besides the trauma and it being too painful, it might be, well, I would imagine on the other end of the spectrum, the oppressor might want to forget the past too, because they don't want to be held accountable, right?
Mm,
Or they might even believe in a different version of the past, uh, again,
mm.
because they don't want to be held accountable. Like, like the son of the Philippine dictator who just became president, right? He has his
Yes.
own version of history that he
Going on,
probably
Mike?
genuinely believes, since, his father was a dictator and no one wants to think of their father as this oppressive,
Yes.
brutal, wicked person, right? Like, who wants to think of your own parents like that? So he probably has his own version of the past that's
Yeah.
false.
Very valid. Very valid to add to all of that there. And a bit more to other reasons why folks would want to also forget the past is because of the fact that, again, it brings apart a negative feeling, especially if it's of guilt, if it's of failure,
Yep, the guilt.
as well as, again, looking at somebody else's experience and thinking that that should also happen for you. So not even really wanting to face yourself in a mirror because of the fact that you want to live and be in somebody else's shoes and not your own shoes, which again can go into that deeper trauma we talk about. But those are some other reasons I can think of why people want to forget that past and be like, no, that never happened to me. I had the same thing happen to me, just like how it happened to Shaq. I was 7'1". Shoot, I was on my way getting into the NBA. Again, you can also falsify your past and memories. And again, you can look at it now. That's why we have people who, again, you have the whole idea of liars and, people who are able to con particular folks and stuff because they can take you into that space and time and really sell you a dream. Here we go. We're going back to all this dreaming and all of the inceptions and things of that sort. And when you buy into that particular dream, thinking that it actually happened, again, being able to be very suggestive for someone to have that influence, it can go about and, again, change the fabric of what you thought your past was.
Yeah, like that man who conned so many women of tens of thousands of dollars for a total of millions, right? And he did it by pretending to be the son of a billionaire and some diamond mine, owner, and he would wine and dine and take these women on these trips on helicopters and private jets, and so they really believed that he was rich. But the thing was, he used the money from the women he had previously conned to wine and dine the next woman. So that's how he was able
Mm, wow.
to start asking them for money. And at first, it's like, wait, why is this rich person, asking me for money? But then he would make up these really like wild, crazy about how like uh, he's in danger and like people are trying to catch him and he can't use his credit cards and he doesn't have access to them. Can you send me money? And that's how he would do it. And the women would believe it. Like, I don't know, it's so crazy.
Again, you sell somebody a dream, it sounds too good to be true. And some people are willing to take that ride and that risk, which another reason why some people also forget the past too. Not only talking about just the particular, they're not, ready, again, like you said, for the accountability and that risk taking. Sometimes people forget the past so that they can forget about some of the behaviors that they did that were damaging, like self-sabotage.
Mm.
Like thinking that if I did something, I'm never going to be able to do it again. So all the like rechanging your thoughts in your mind and those behaviors that in the past did not really serve you. But again, it's a learned lesson. But if you forget that you learned that lesson about not wanting to sabotage yourself, it can show up again in another experience. So yes, I'm still saying wholeheartedly, and I'm not going to speak for Kundan, but I will end up saying that it is important to take the good, the bad, the ugly, the in-between, the indifferent, all of that, and use that as a holistic view of honestly what has happened with your life so far. Don't be like, I'm only for just only the positive vibes. knowing that there's going to be negative vibes that happen. You can be aware of all of this stuff. You can still say it's a part of around you. But of course, you can choose to ignore, which ignore doesn't mean ignorance or you don't know. You choose to not be a part of or choose to not know what's happening around that. So just know realistically, as much as we can say we just only want the positive, we want the best, we want all of this, life is a roller coaster. Waves move back and forth. You have to go with the flow of how that shows. And it ultimately shows that you're not always going to have an up. Even the stock market, even the stuff that's created, that's trying to mimic the natural around us. You see that it's not always on an up and up forever. All that goes up must come down. We're not only talking about gravity either.
Hmm. Yeah, toxic positivity is very dangerous and can be really harmful. I, like for example, I was just talking about this to a friend of mine today. I watched the HBO series The Vow about the cult Nexium, and the cult leader literally had the women, and he wouldn't even do it directly. He assigned a woman leader so that would create trust,
Yeah.
and the woman leader would create these private parties, and in those parties, uh, through that proxy of another woman, right? He had all of his
Yeah.
women followers literally brand their crotches with hot iron with his initials on his crotches. And he did it two ways. One was he lied to them. He didn't tell them it was his own initials. He said it was his magic symbol or something like that. And so they didn't even realize it was his initials. But the second part of it was that the women agreed because they wanted to prove how strong they were. So like one of the women, for example, literally self-hypnotized themselves so that they wouldn't feel the pain of the hot iron on her crotch, like when it was happening. So that's a toxic positivity on a whole other level, like just needing to prove that you're strong, like, and that's huge in the personal development industry where like everybody wants to be like strong, and independent, and yeah, and that can be easily used to manipulate you and make you do really weird self-harm, like what the women did to each other.
Listen, y'all. Pay attention. But yes. So, holistic view. You take everything in. You use what's needed. You learn from what's needed. And you keep pressing forward.
Yeah.
Now, the last one, before we move over into the last topic for tonight, but the last one I have, because I wanted, and we already could say we talked about a few here, but there's a point in this last question I'm going to ask that I also want to bring to people's attention as well, is the how. So, how do you go about forgetting the past? And there's a number of ways that you can do that, of how you can go about forgetting the past. But I'm going to let you do a few, Kundan, before I do.
Yeah. Well, with the ones that happen accidentally, like when I said, not only do you forget the past, you forget that you forget it. You didn't even know that you did it. The brain just, the mind, the brain, whatever you call it, like it just shuts down automatically, right? It's a subconscious thing because it's too painful, right? But with the thing where you did it deliberately, where it's not entirely subconscious, like there's some sort of conscious mechanism behind it, right?
Yes.
Uh, with that, how I think I'm not sure exactly how, but you might even create, one way might be you might even just create a different memory
Yeah.
To replace that. Or you might create a literal locked room, like Captain Picard did, right? A
Yes.
metaphorical locked room, to enclose it without the key, like you don't have the key anymore, so you cannot
Yes.
open that door, and it's literally behind this scary, like, locked room.
Yes.
And that's another way the mind does it as well, where there are these, uh, we probably have many locked rooms that we're not even consciously aware of anymore, right?
Yeah. Shout out to the Keymaster in Matrix Reloaded. Um,
There you go. Yeah.
yes. So I'm trying to get all my keys so I can figure out what other doors that I have not explored yet. But one of the points I wanted to add to the how you go about forgetting the past, and it's very, very prominent in the media, in music, and just our social culture. But addiction, and what I mean by that too, in particular, is all the different coping mechanisms that can be seen to just be socially acceptable in society. So whether if it's drinking, whether if it's
Alcohol,
smoking,
drugs,
yes, drugs, and
social
exactly,
media, right?
yeah, social media itself is a drug. Yes, y'all, it is.
Yeah, but that's a good point because when you're drinking, you remember less because you're so overpowered. Like all your senses are overpowered by the intoxication of the chemicals.
Yes, and we're not saying again, y'all. This is
That's why
things
people
in
who are
moderation.
blacked out don't remember much about what happened that night, right?
Yes, blackouts. They have blackouts that literally they don't remember. And some people
Yeah.
have to come and retell them what happened or what they did. And some people get frustrated and upset because they can't remember what they did because people are telling them. And it's some things that, again, would be embarrassing or something that they was just like, I can't believe I did that, but I don't remember it. So yeah, I wanted to bring that up because again, yes, there's in moderation with a lot of this stuff. Yes, y'all. There's always going to be that balance to whatever you are getting into, indulging. Of course, there's some things you use your morals, use your wit, and know okay what makes sense and what does not make sense and doesn't feel right. But really, I wanted to hit on the addiction because I've been seeing there's like the numbers, especially I've heard I think between 14 and 40, the number of overdoses for those that age range has increased over the past like 10 years. And it's
Wow.
not only let alone, and again, you can don't quote me on a lot of this because it's the years, but I saw some of the research at least, and this is not only due to what's being said in the music, but also what is happening around us and people finding those only ways to cope, and we in a way idolizing it. Because I remember again, that's the same thing that was going on with smoking when I was a kid. As much as we know how even the FDA passed all of this stuff and how the smoking companies let you know that there's cancer and things and stuff and that on TV shows and televisions and all different places, what do you always see somebody smoking categorized as? Literally somebody who's cool, whether if they're like now know what they're doing,
Yeah,
they're more
even
adult, they're
smoking,
more
like it used to be recommended by doctors. I saw an ad a few months ago where literally it was like you literally see like smokers in the hospital bed and the doctor is like kind of
hey
recommending
Carlin.
it and yeah. So it's so weird and that's why I don't always trust, Western medical science because it keeps isn't I mean of course science is supposed to change by its very nature it's supposed to, you know, change its statements based on new data, but the way it's influenced by manipulation, I feel like
Mm.
because that's such a 180 degree that should never happen, where, from doctors saying it's healthy to smoke to not healthy at all. It's like, that's too weird a change.
Oh yeah, I mean, and again, the whole
Yeah.
setup I was talking about. Um, one of the families I keep on forgetting whether if it's the Rockefellers or the Rothschilds. I think it might have been the Rockefellers that started the whole setup with medicine that we know of as of today, and before when they was doing all the studying in their schools and how they're using petroleum to help treat cancer patients versus all the other herbal medicinal remedies that were there, and who anybody who ever used that, they would shun them and call them quacks and crazies because they were
Yeah.
using other means, these alternative medicines to help treat what was going on with cancer. But to come back again to the point of, addiction and all the other different means of being able to do that, it puts you in a state where you can escape, as well as put you in a state of whatever feeling that you want to have and experience, and really be in tune with the moment, that whatever just happened previously and it made you feel rather good, great, bad, whatever it was, you're in that moment, and that's the moment, and that's how it ends up staying, and end up forgetting it there. Now, do I condone any stuff that you can do that, or wherever man end up being? No, not in that case. Oh, let me see. Is that the ad right there? Yep.
Check out these ads. Less irritating. And then this one, right, this one right here. No doctors smoke camels and any cigarette. There's even a dentist recommendation. Pressurize filtered smoke, as your dentist would recommend.
Again,
Hey, lucky are less irritating. Yeah, this is crazy.
it's early on again, because I
Yeah,
honestly, I'm not too surprised again, Kundan, because as time changes, people come to finally do research on stuff and find out that things were a lot more harmful, or some were more helpful than they were. Because again, you got to experience it some way, shape, or form, or have something happen. So I can
oh yeah.
really just see that. I see that being the thing. What else you got?
Oh here, this is the one with the count. What cigarette do you smoke, doctor? Yeah, this was like the famous ad.
Yeah,
Thank you.
but
Yeah.
again, using different coping mechanisms can also
Yeah.
be the how you can forget the past.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
so
don't know if you had
crazy.
any other point. Yep. I don't know if you had any other point, Kunin, before we move on to the next topic. If you do,
Yeah,
go ahead.
trauma. Yeah, I think in fact, we kind of was even touching to the next topic already when we were talking about my experience under Captain Picard's story. Yeah.
Yeah. So with that being said, y'all, let's go ahead and let's get to the last topic for tonight, which the last topic for tonight is how trauma impacts your present. And you already can tell
Mhm.
that every time that I put these topics together, and I'm going to keep saying it until somebody is like in the comments say, yo, bro, we've had enough. I just want to see that comment. It'll make me laugh. There's a reason why I pair these topics together. It's because, look, you see how seamlessly it flows in between, because they're paired so well together. So it's purposely done. If you don't know that now, remember it. Don't forget it. Remember it. But now, when it comes to how trauma impacts your present, Kunin shared a story earlier, and how Kunin was able to be aware of that and now finally be able to address it, not only because that's something that happened in the past, but through the medium of reading the Parable series, a book, storytelling, as that way to heal, in a sense. But questions to you. So, how are some ways, trauma impacts present?
I think it colors the lens with which we see reality, right? Where uh, I mean, reality is not entirely objective. I don't want to say it's entirely subjective either. It's somewhere in
Mm,
between, right?
yes.
There is some level of intersubjective truth where both of us can agree that something really happened, right?
Yeah.
But then within that agreement, there are different interpretations of what happened based on our various lenses with which we see what is happening right now, based on the
Mm,
trauma that we experienced in the past, right?
yeah.
So, and yeah, like for example, I knew a woman who would uh, block, random male strangers on Facebook if all they say is hi and then they don't say anything else. Uh, and at the time, I thought was really harsh, right? But then,
Yeah.
because so many people were thinking that's too harsh, she did an experiment where she decided to engage some of these people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then she showed screenshots of what happened, and it was like it was exactly as she predicted that this would be like they turned out to be very yeah, like very aggressive, a lot of harassment kind of, messaging, right? And
Mm.
it's almost like she can, based on not just past trauma, but like the reality of that experience, right? Like trauma doesn't have to be always like a negative thing that
Yeah.
we always have to heal from. It can
Yeah.
also be a thing that guides our present day actions so that
A sign.
a sign, right? So that we can prevent more trauma, right?
Yes.
Where if we can see similar patterns
Yes.
way ahead in advance, like she did with with that kind of approach to her.
Yes.
Uh, like, wouldn't you want to avoid a dark alley, for example, right? Literal dark
Mm-hmm.
alley where there's no light. Uh, and if you feel like something off,
Chris.
right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
then you would avoid it. And if you didn't listen to your intuition, right, you might get robbed or mugged or worse than that, right?
Yes.
And yeah, so in that sense, that's more of how it can help you in the positive, but it can also help you negatively, where you might see like interpret every little experience as
Yeah.
that you might be like hypersensitive and be like if somebody like, uh, says says hi to you but did not smile at you, you might see that as oh, this person doesn't like me, right?
Yeah.
Based on how in the past a lot of people mistreated you, right? And if you've experienced a lot of mistreatment in the past, then you're more hypersensitive to like to to possible future rejection or being outcast from the tribe, right? That kind of almost
Mm.
on a nervous system level,
Yes.
Yeah.
And adding on to your point there too, most of the time through these traumas and these experiences that we do have, some of it happens very early on, and we are unaware of how that situation has such a huge impact as a kid because it just didn't feel right. Or it made you really think about, okay, now I know. For me in particular, again, like you said, it's a sign. This is where I learned as a kid now, and where I'm at here is that literally, if you are too nice or you're too kind to someone, you could be taken advantage of. And I learned that the hard way as a kid because of the fact that, again, I can say I had at least a better upbringing than, I'm not going to say again as most, but I'm grateful for the upbringing I had. I had my trials here and there, but it was to a point where I was so open as a kid that I was willing to want to share with everybody. I was willing to want to, just give of like my time or any way I can support. But it got to a point where I started to, again, see those signs so that now I become more hesitant to want to give up my time or any of the resource to somebody because of the fact that they say that they need it. Because in the past, when I used to do that, I always would either been seen as, oh, I can go get candy from this kid, or he has extra money, or I can go get some extra lunch from this kid just because he's want to do that. As well as, for me, this is how I've lost video games as a kid. Me being so trusting to people that I would see multiple times, they take the game, be like, gonna give it back this next time, and they disappear of no clue of where they went. So I
Yeah.
learned as a kid that kindness, it can be a weakness if you allow it to be. But at the same time, should you still show the courtesy and the kindness to people when needed? Yes. But when you see those signs of that it's being taken advantage of, you cut it off.
Yep. Yep.
So,
Yeah.
again, when it comes to how trauma impacts your present, again, it gives you, like you said, that perspective and a different type of lens to how you are going to walk and share about your life and who and what you do. Ultimately, that's why some people actually pick the professions that they go into. Sometimes because of the fact that unconsciously, it's a sense of therapy for them to go through that. So some people who actually go through and get a psychology major, not only because they want to learn about people and learn about the mind and psychology, the underlying feeling is that there's something in there that you also want to dig up from yourself that you want to learn about and be like, okay, why did that actually happen? Or where did all of those different things? So you would be surprised by, again, sometimes your choices of what you want to do, what you want to be, and how you want to show stuff is impacted on what has happened. Again, are we saying that it's always negative what has happened in the past? No, but it's a sign. And with signs, too, shouts out to Alien Space Queen, a.k.a. Chris in the building. What's the word, Chris? What's the word?
Hey, so we're talking about trauma. It's my favorite topic.
Yeah, and how it impacts your present.
Yeah, it's my favorite topic, especially being a Black woman in America. Can I speak on it?
Of course you can. If you know, I didn't. Go ahead.
There's a lot that we go through in these socialization, and I call it assimilation because I went to private schools, and at the beginning years of life it was predominantly Caucasian private school, so that's why I say assimilation. They were evangelical type schools, so there's a whole nother kind of like conformity with that. But yeah, I have like a ton, and one of them I had to not necessarily address because it's something that I understand that people are not going to understand, especially people of different ethnic backgrounds. The Caucasian variety, they're not going to understand, and I don't expect them to understand, but I did have a recent situation that happened today. So due to my traumas from my upbringings on how I'm supposed to act and this whole ideal behind you have to be a strong Black woman, I love that we're actually starting to come out and hearing other Black women say, I'm not a strong Black woman. I love hearing that. I really do, because we're not all strong, and it is very toxic to try to put us in that box of like, well, you're resilient. Okay, I'm resilient because I have to be, not
just talking about that earlier.
And so at work today, I heard that I got my first complaint. Somebody complained about me because I think they took offense to my tone, my professional tone. And my professional tone is a more direct tone. I am in a position where I am directing people. And so, you got to be direct to give directions, right? So that's just how I see it. But I don't know. This is like hearsay. I heard it from the person who's supposed to be like my manager, and she's like a middle-aged Caucasian woman, right? So she just kind of like approached me, and she was like, are you not happy at this job? Kind of like tone. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, well, I just want to see where you're at because I heard there was a complaint about you. And I was like, a complaint? And she's like, yeah, something to do like with the way that you talk to people. Can you think of anything that happened in the past like week or so? And I was like, honestly, no. I cannot. I talk to everybody the same way, consistently. I don't go above and I don't go beyond. I give what I'm supposed to give. I do what I'm supposed to do, and I say the things the way the owners of this company I work for told me to say them. So that kind of rattled me today, because it's like, wow, this seems to be a reoccurring issue in my life personally.
The whole tone policing,
Yep, thank you, Kundan, because that's what I was like diving into. A lot of tone policing, and I think that is the like most aggressive microaggression that I get all the time, because my personality, I'm not the type to kiss people's ass. I'm not the type to sugarcoat things, and I guess that rubs people away, especially Caucasian people, because if you're not, what did they call it in the 70s? If you're not chucking and jiving for them, and you're not like making them feel like you're not boosting them, then they automatically have an issue with you. And this ties into my trauma because I grew up in a school with white people. So like I grew up colorblind. So that was like, I had the reverse. Like I didn't grow up with a lot of kids that looked like me. At one point, it was joked about in my family and outside about me being an Oreo, you know, and I always hated that, because it's like, what do you mean? So that also traumatizes like it delayed my self-development in learning and knowing who I am, because I'm being told one thing, experiencing another, and not being like the African American culture wasn't necessarily reiterated, but I was experiencing life as an African American, but being told that I'm whitewashed, and you know, so it's like interesting when you grow up with that kind of like perspective. Who am I? Self-identity. I don't know if you like remember back in high school, but that's why I was struggling a lot in high school, because I didn't have a sense of self. I didn't know who I was, and I was so like, and I was ashamed of who I was, and not because I wasn't ashamed of like the blackness. I was ashamed that people didn't register me as black. You know, I would categorize myself as like alt black, which I love TikTok because I found my niche. I found all the alt black kids. We're all adults now. We're all making videos, and I love it. But I'm like, where were you guys growing up?
Yeah.
And my cousin was joking. She was like, they were also having issues in their household too, because you know, it was different than what, quote unquote, it meant to be black circa 2004. You know, it was not considered black to listen to Linkin Park, or
I love Linkin
it
Park.
was not considered black to listen to My Chemical Romance, you know, and things like that. So, so these do have an effect on me, because I've gone from being not black enough, right? And now as an adult, I am too black, because I really do look at the difference. Growing up, I had white friends. I don't have any white friends in this day and age right now at the age of 29. There's no one in my like circle that's white, and then I go out into this world and I'm perceived as black, and I don't even think it would be, I know anything is possible. I don't think it would be probable for me to get a white friend in this day and age, you know? So, like, I definitely see the transition that has happened, and it's, like, very interesting to see, like, this all stems from a lack of, like, self-identity, you know, that was, like, a perspective pushed like onto me, like that. I would say that's probably like the most traumatic thing. And then living in a black household that reaffirmed these values that are not like true. So it's very interesting.
Thank you for sharing all of that, as well as what has recently happened to you, as well as summing up what has happened to you there in the past, again, through your lenses and through your eyes. Because, again, that's why how you see how it can have a lasting, if not a long effect on your life. When I'm talking about I'm talking about trauma in particular. And being able to, again, assess, be aware of, and go through those trials of figuring out what this trauma is and what it's about and why did it come about. Asking all of those questions is where you start to do the work, where you start to do that healing and cleansing of a lot of that stuff. Yes, we're here for you. You are justified in a way that you feel when it comes to what you have experienced and what you have seen. But there comes a point in time to where you're going to have to take those feelings to help you, again, pass and get over those growing pains so that then you can continue to grow further. Because guess what? If you continue to let those traumas sit there and sit there and sit there, again, you become stagnant, and you get, in your perspective on life, ultimately changes to something that closes you in. But how trauma can affect your present, it can mess up opportunities for yourself.
Yeah, especially out here where I live, you know, and I bring up, like, I think that's the hardest thing that is being it's like it's being re-brought up. Yeah. I don't know if this is like the universe testing to like really see, because I've sat with myself long enough. Like I know who I am now, and I understand.
All right,
I understand
Avatar.
A lot of it has nothing. Tough, get it right. I've been metal up in here. No, I've sat long enough, and I now, you know, I accept all areas of myself. So I actually, I would describe myself as dynamic and ever changing. Also, Earth energy. That's who I realize myself to be. But it's funny when you're like tested. Like today was a test. Like I am self-assured in who I am. But remembering that just because I see myself how I see myself does not mean everyone else is going to see me the way I am.
Yeah. And
that is through other issues that are unrelated to me on a personal and individual level. That's on a societal, and can even blame socio-economic reasons, you know, why people have their judgments and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But I do hear you. But like when it's like that trauma, I've mostly have worked through. But it's weird when you get those little reminders of like, oh yeah, you're just not gonna be received well by these people in particular. But yet, yeah, I grew up in a very like diverse. I had a very diverse upbringing, and I think it's like recently what's going on politically right now is having a big effect on that perspective of diversity and like what diversity is becoming now.
Yeah.
I feel like we're again being swept under the rug. Everybody else gets to be diverse, but not us. So I don't know how to heal that. That's a generational thing. That's a generational trauma. I don't think we'll be the generation to do it. I think we're a couple more generations down. I don't know.
Honestly, I will. Again, because again, my experience is different. But thank you for saying that too. It's a great point. Honestly, it's finally time, and it's been time way back when. It's been time way back when.
Yeah.
To play your own game. And what we always keep on talking about, let us unify. Let us all come together again as a people so you can understand this, because what ends up happening is we want to dip into this, play into the game, into the system, into this diversity, and then you see where the end result still happens. Because guess what? There's always going to be some type of hierarchy regardless. But we want to sit so high on the hierarchy to feel that, again, we've accomplished something from somebody who's giving us accolades, which is, who is that person that's giving us accolades? At the end of the day, we gotta be able to give ourselves accolades. And I'm not saying in a selfish way of like, well, that means we all tens, we be, you know, all this other different stuff is no, but in a sense of yeah, exactly. Be able to take care of yourself, but then at the same time, when it's time for that game to be played and stuff, now you know you have multiple options. You can entertain the game if you want to. You can be upset about the game, or you can just not play in the game and see how that also has an effect.
In The Wire. Yeah, I think it was a quote from The
Really?
Wire. Yeah.
I've never...
It's like one of the episodes. Oh, okay. You watch The Wire. The Wire is...
I was just talking earlier about Inception and how I finally watched Inception a week and a half ago, and that's been out since 2010. So yeah, I'm no stranger to being way behind when it comes to TV shows and movies. So
well, I was way behind. I only discovered The Wire in like 2018, and The Wire has been out since like early 2000, like 1999. Like, so yeah.
The friends that I have, Chris, literally, I hear about things. I know about these things long time ago, and just never get into them.
After The Wire, watch The Sopranos.
Oh yeah, all of those random cuts out of nowhere towards the end. Yeah.
It's deeper than that. I think you would enjoy The Sopranos, just from a like psychology aspect. I think you'll enjoy that. But yeah, I definitely hear you. We've got to take care of ourselves first.
It's important.
So I'm back at that one place with the mermaids, and and I had a customer come in, you know, and she was telling me about like how she's like, this is not it anymore. I'm moving to Africa. I'm going to buy land. She was like, I'm moving my kids out there. Like, because what they're telling us about Africa is not real information.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was like, no, like, this is not it. It's not, you know, it's getting to that point where she's like, we need to just dip. And, you know, to some degree, I feel her and I hear her. But I don't know, I have that little grain of hope, and you know, that, you know, and I don't know if that's enough, but I don't know. I still have a grain of hope for here, but I would not mind moving to another country. I would not mind it, but I don't know how feasible, you know, it's a lot, but I can understand why someone would, you know, I get it. It's always been scary, but it's like we're the adults,
a leap of faith,
and it's scary, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember it ever being this scary, but that's because, you know, we're on the more recent part of, you know, history. So
yes. But look, I will say this, and welcome back. I will say this. Everything, we always say, again, in moderation. A little hope is cool. But it can get to a point where it can create a loop of insanity. Because you hoping for so long. And hoping for so long that something can happen. And this is where also, too, if you don't put the action behind your hope, how is it going to even come to fruition? I can't hope in this seat right here that I'm going to become the best rapper in the world or the best podcaster in the world by just hoping in my seat. If I don't take the time to make the music, don't take the time to make the podcast, the topics, and all of those different things. So it's always great to have that particular feeling of hope. That's why, for me, I have an acronym for hope, but this is y'all get some early stuff too. No. Yeah, that's another different thing. No, this is for something like more. Some people know about it. It's not too top secret, but yeah, the way I think of my acronym for hope, which is helping open people's ears, is literally being able to use that action.
Coming in with the words
again of being able to help us open up our ears to figure out not only that don't just sit there. Let's get up and move. Let's move some action. Let's do something together, because it's cool that we can keep hoping. But guess what? You know what that actually becomes? If we just hope and hope and hope and we stand there, that becomes the bystander effect. And what happens when everybody's in the bystander effect? Right, nobody knows to do, nothing gets done. So you can just be there on the sideline where we can see that some type of, again, evil trauma or something that could be happening, and we can hope the fact that somebody goes and handles that. But if everybody's in there hoping and just standing there,
I feel like this is worse than the bystander effect. It becomes even deeper. I think it becomes complacency, because then there's the consciousness of like, I know this isn't right, but I'm not doing anything about it
because I'm cool.
Because it's not personally affecting me, and that right there is the scariest thing to me.
Yeah.
Like, in my mind, it's like, so we all know, and we're choosing not to. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's scary. That's scary.
Yeah. This boy said, "Hope like by Advis."
And put it in the comments so you can.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's why in my culture, in Buddhist culture, like we literally regard hope and fear as two sides of the same coin, and we regard hope actually as a form of suffering, like because it comes from a sense of lack. Because when you hope for something to happen, you simultaneously fear it will not happen, so you're still in suffering when you're in hope. It's this feeling of grasping. It's literally like the word we use is tanha, which is almost like, in English, if you translate it, there's no direct translation, but it kind of is like a mixture of lust with hope. That's what hope feels like. In reality, hope is more like lust than
desire.
Desire. Yeah. Oh yeah, like a desire. Yeah.
Yeah. It's this grasping thing, and so the meditation practice that we try to do is to tune into more of a sense of inner completion, so that we can express that completion out into the world and make the collective as complete as us. That's the goal.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Again, you see, and that still goes back to the fact that if you're not able to be aware of these things happening, you'll see how trauma can end up blocking off you being able to be aware about this stuff too. And again, what can also help or also hinder too, when how trauma impacts your present, you also use that trauma. I know we said it before in different ways, but you use that trauma as a crutch for why you can't get over thing or you can't get anything. So when somebody comes and they put up the mirror to you and say, what's going on with this right here? What happened with this? And you're like, well, it was so traumatic to the point that, I've been diagnosed with this particular thing. Honestly, I will say this. Diagnoses can help to a certain extent when it comes to the knowledge, so that you can have an idea of, okay, this is what the diagnosis is. But ultimately, it still comes down to you if you're going to take that on or not. Because sometimes, I don't have the numbers up right now, but there is a good number of people who are misdiagnosed on what they thought they have when that's not particularly the case. But what happens is the damage has been done. You've already took on that suggestion. You put it into yourself. And now, whenever you're going to do something, you're just like, well, I can't do that because, well, I've been diagnosed with this particular thing. So it prevents me from being able to do this to my full capacity. So why even try?
Yeah. I fall into that sometimes with
that's why I drew this diagram, see?
There's the diagram.
This is hope, fear, but they're in the same circle, see? Inside the same. You're still in the same circle when you're in hope. As fear.
Look at, I know.
What do we need to undo this?
No, look. I don't know why. Just go along with me because I'm looking at it right now. So, I already see in the word fear, you have ear, because sometimes people get fearful of what they hear So that's why
Ooh.
you gotta be careful.
You gotta open that ear.
You gotta have the hope, helping open people's ears, so that they can
Yes.
literally watch out for that fear. But I don't know. I just saw ear within fear, and I just thought, really, most of the time, that's how you get people in the fear mongering. Is not only through what you see, but also of what you hear,
what you intake.
Yes.
Also, what you see.
Yeah.
Said, I am
So the
done,
goal is
bro.
But see, it doesn't work. So it has to be fear. Ear.
The goal is to expand through the whole circle, but also expand beyond the circle and go into like infinite awareness. And that's when you realize both hope and fear are not only in the same circle and two sides of the same coin. They're a small part of who you are, and you gotta be more of who you are. Like that's like the solution to this conundrum.
Beautiful displays. I like how the show's turned out so far. There's been a lot of show and tell.
Aids. I love it.
All of this stuff. Again, for all my visual learners, even though they debunked it, said that we don't learn for all these particular different ways, which I still say BS to that. Because yes, we use all those different ways to learn, but there are some people who are more sharper visually of what they see rather than what they hear. So I don't care you debunk it, it still applies. And when I use it, and when I used to use it with the kids, it worked out wonderfully.
Well,
so don't know what you're talking about in particular. But thank you for all of those different things there.
I draw a lot of diagrams,
Yeah. That's very true. Let's go ahead and is there any last points that you two have before I want to go ahead and round up? Because this has been, again, dope convos, and we know that we can go on and on about how trauma can have impacts, but is there any other points y'all both want to make before we all get done with tonight?
I just want to thank you for, I didn't know this was going to be the topic, but me and Ebony were literally just talking about this same topic like 5 minutes before I hopped on. So I was like, wow, look at that universe.
Yep. We noticed the signs.
So no, I just want to thank you. Your topics are always on point, and they come at the right time. Always. I don't know how you do it, but you do it.
I get the feeling. Sometimes, I just it happens, but a lot of this is not possible again if y'all don't show up as well as come in and you share it. Because again, it could just be me just rambling on and not being able to see the other multitude of perspectives. And once we all come together, collectively start sharing, so much stuff comes out. So I appreciate y'all for coming so that we could bring more out of each other. So it's all love. All love.
I finally saw the ad I wanted to show you. Actually, this was the one I wanted to show you for the cigarettes, see? Cigarettes were literally recommended by doctors for asthma patients. For Falgrad hay fever. Isn't that crazy? It's the opposite of what's now. Now we know it causes lung cancer and things like that. It's like no for asthma, asthmatics.
Oh my!
And it's literally what's recommended. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier, Chris. Yeah, we were talking about all of that stuff earlier. That's why Kundan brought some more of those points back up.
Let me not say believe. Let me say I know it.
Anything, all the carcinogens that are out there. Come on now, there's a no. I know you're laughing. Look, I know. I know I'm doing so many times where I'm just like, I don't believe. I know, and people are you're really sure about that? It was just like, but I don't like to say believe. I should say I don't like. I take less time to use the word believe. Because of the fact that how I broke it down, you can lie about your beliefs. There's a lie in belief. So you got to be careful. Just like how we were talking earlier today, or earlier in the stream too, Chris, about literally falsifying your own memories of your past
Most
sometimes
I
Yeah,
have
that can
no
also forget that.
recollection.
right.
I have no
Falsify.
recollection from like childhood. I have a little bit from high school, but prior to,
The flagpole and everything.
yeah, where I used to
Mm.
meet Zero, yeah.
I need to stop.
You
But
used to
yeah,
be there, Calvin, and you'd be rapping. Come on now.
I'm so done with that. But yeah,
But yeah,
Yeah. But in regards to like tone policing that you were saying earlier, that it reminds me about a quote by Alok Menon, and I say this often. I made a diagram for that too, but it's not handily available. But Alok said,
mm,
things are not only spoken into existence, things are spoken into extinction.
mm,
mm,
So when we try to silence people by tone policing them, we're literally psychologically driving them into extinction. I feel like I want to coin a new word for this because there's a word for the psychological or psychosocial killing of entire cultures.
yes.
For cultural genocide, it's known as epistemicide, right? That's the term for that. But I
Mm,
feel like on the individual level, I want to coin a term that I'm going to call it psychocide or something like that from the word homicide, right? So there's
mm-hmm,
homicide, which is the physical killing of a people. But when you do
mm-hmm.
tone policing and things like that, I feel like, especially when there's a power dynamic like that, right, from somebody with more power and privilege doing that to a less privileged person, less
mm.
person with less society power, I feel like that is psychocide. It's not a light thing. It's psychocide. It's psychological murder. Like,
Now, how do we
And this is
educate the
first
masses on this?
hmm?
How
Huh?
do we educate the masses on this?
right here.
We
Because
gotta do
I
right
feel
here.
like
We gotta
in
do
like
more lives
everything,
like
like
this and tell more stories. Yeah.
yeah. Well, see,
Uh,
the demographic that I consistently deal with on a basis is Caucasian males ranging from their 30s all the way to their 80s. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And that group, let's cut it in half, right? So let's say the older let's start at like 60 to 80.
Yeah.
They're like kind of stuck in their ways. And any new terms, any new concepts or ideas are not ready accessible for them, or they don't know how to access it, or don't even care to. So like I
Hmm.
like what our generation is doing, but I feel like, just personally, I just feel like, how do we mainstream or mainline these things so that
well,
it gets in their ear, right? We're back on ears.
it goes back to like, is it your calling, right? First of all, you have to ask yourself that
Mm,
question because is it really your calling? Because I feel like I've come to the conclusion that as a marginalized, as a racialized person, right, it's not my duty, it's not my job to educate my oppressor on their oppression. Like because I've gone through like years of like Facebook, arguments and comments trying to educate them. I've sent them links to articles, links to videos. I've educated them, for example, that there's no such thing as racism against white people. There's no such thing
mm-hmm,
as reverse racism.
mm-hmm,
I've educated them on gaslighting, and it's like I keep getting the same arguments over and over to the point that uh, there are even people who've made diagrams called white fragility bingo, where it's like so predictable from the
Yes.
same playbook that they you can just like send them a diagram in response to that, right? And that's how predictable it is. And so I feel like on some level, I almost feel like they're even doing it on purpose. It's a war of attrition.
right.
Sun Tzu talked about this, right? To
Mm-hmm,
deliberately exhaust you with sometimes even sea lioning. There's even a term for this, right? When they keep asking you too many questions, it's called sea lioning, where they pretend that they're doing it in good faith,
Yes.
but they're
mm-hmm.
just trying to exhaust you, right?
Right,
So I feel like
right.
unless it's your calling, like Catrice Jackson, right? That's her calling. Her entire life's work is anti-racism work and teaching 2-day workshops on to teach white people to stop being racist, right? Or to at least try to become a recovering racist because you can never totally stop it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so the programming is everywhere. So
They follow us.
that's why the best you can
Yeah.
be is become a recovering racist. Similar to how you can never stop being an alcoholic, you can only become sober or be a recovering alcoholic. That's how I feel about racism. You can only be a recovering racist. And so I feel like unless it's your calling, like I feel like my job now is to educate each other and ourselves on their manipulation tactics so that we can protect ourselves.
Right.
I feel like that's my calling now because we need to do our own decolonizing work because there's a thing called the Crooked Room experiment, which was in the recent book that I'm reading, The Three Mothers by Anna Talai Tubbs, Anna Talai Malika Tubbs, yeah. And it's a biography of the mothers of Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and James Baldwin. So, Alberta King, Louis Little, and Bertie Baldwin, because we talk about the men, but not the mothers who raised them. That's why she wrote the book. But in that book, she talks about the Crooked Room experiment. And it goes to show why even we need to decolonize ourselves from the way they programmed us to think about ourselves and see us, right? So the Crooked Room experiment is an experiment done where if you put a person in a crooked room with all objects crooked, including the floor and the chairs.
Yeah.
And if you have a person, a human being, sit on that chair, they will claim and they will really believe that they're sitting straight even when they're tilted 35 degrees, as long as they match all the other objects in the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to me, that's a metaphor for not just how white people treat us, but also how we see ourselves, the psychological harmful impact of misrepresentation from systemic racism. That's how we end up with things like the fawn trauma response, with respectability politics, things like that. That's how we end up with things like that. That's how we end up with some people caping for white supremacy, right? Like Candace Owens, right? She's literally is being an agent of empire. And we have, among us Southeast Asians, we have among similar people, we call them sepoys and coconuts, meaning people who are brown on the outside but white on the inside. So
wow, coconuts.
Yeah,
I like coconuts. I like coconuts.
Yeah, same as Oreo.
So
yeah.
So we gotta decolonize our own minds as well, because at least that's my calling now. That's how I feel. But if it's truly your calling, like it is for Catrice to educate white people, then all the more power to you. But I will tell you, it is super exhausting.
I just want to fix it.
It will drain you.
I just want to fix
it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it will drain you like nothing else will. It's exhausting.
Emotional damage.
Yeah.
But again, it just goes to show you how deep down, whether if it's the traumas that have really had a full impact, or if we can say those positive traumas that have given us signs to know how to avoid those things. You see how deeply rooted this stuff can be until you go ahead and start really digging into that surface to figure out why. Because if not, you're going to keep walking through life with this crutch, and you're going to keep walking through life with this big old boulder on your shoulders. Shout outs to Atlas. And you're just going to always wonder why everything feels so heavy on you. And you're going to continue just feel heavy and weighed down. And it's because of the fact that you're carrying, again, I'm gonna say again, everybody carries their traumas like it was a backpack. I know this is an analogy that's already done before. And the more and more that you take your time to take off the backpack of your traumas and unpack it, is where the load becomes lighter and lighter. So that now when you carry in that backpack of the traumas, you're more informed of what was needed and what was not done, because now you can be able to see where that's going, and then now you can carry perspectives.
Yeah. Now, if somebody is, has a lot of systemic power, is a leader, in like then with something big at stake, then I might do some work around calling them out. Like when Marianne Williamson was running for president, I was like, there's absolutely no way I would want this person to become president ever, because I've had a direct experience with her of her racism, as well as witnessing a whole thread of her being racist towards black women and brown women. And so, and that happened directly with me, right? And I have screenshots. In fact, a friend of mine even did the labor of turning those screenshots into an organized PDF file, which is like a next level labor that she did for me. I was like, you're a real one for doing that.
Yeah, because that's
But
a lot of work to do that too.
Yeah. That's labor too. That's why I made my model about the 7 types of unrecognized labor, right? I have a whole diagram. In fact, I have it stuck on my wall as a reminder all the time. I literally
do you mind going through the 7 for me, Kundan?
Oh, yeah. So there's emotional labor, right? So the entire diagram says pay your artists, teachers, and writers 7 types of labor. Then there is emotional labor. Then there is intellectual labor, mental labor, spiritual labor, environmental labor, relational labor, and then finally mitochondrial labor. Now that's a biological term from the term mitochondria, which is literally how our bodies produce energy.
The powerhouse of the cell.
So I have a new version of the diagram, which I put up in almost every post on Instagram now.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if you noticed, I put this up in every post. But I use a new version and use a new version of this diagram where I put the mitochondrial label right in the center, because I feel like that is the central thing from which everything else springs up.
Yes. Beautiful.
Thank you, Kundan, for sharing that.
And with that, y'all, final thoughts of the whole show, any of the topics, or even just the last topic. What you got for us, Chris?
Man, when it comes to, I mean, in your title, it says like forgetting the past.
Yeah.
I don't, just me personally, I don't think I'll ever like forget my past, because it is a part of like the roadmap. Like, how did I get here? Yes. So I think it is very necessary to remember, but not to dwell. So that's my personal, like, that ever since I've been out here in the desert, it's allowed me that space and that time to like reminisce, pinpoint, identify, and like slowly work, but still work on it. Yes. Especially, you know, like what I've shared with you guys, like my past, that was just one instance. It's like the identity crisis. And then you go into like the paternal trauma and all these others. So when you have, you know, so much baggage in your backpack, you know, that is not something that you're going to resolve overnight. Yeah. And so for me, I always recommend like taking it slow and taking your time. Like that's my biggest like recommendation when it comes to unpacking your stuff, because if you try to spill it out all at once, it correlates with your chart, Kundan. It does take a toll, and it's using all 7 of those different types of labor, and you're not even going to pay for it. So take your time.
In fact, what I do nowadays is whatever I think is the cost of my labor, like, you know, whether it's a painting that I make, a book that I'm going to publish, or even, you know, the cost of my, you know, coaching and healing sessions that I do, I feel like even if I don't actually charge people that much, I should know my own value for myself. So what I do is whatever I think is the cost or the value, I multiply it by 7 times, because there's 7 types of labor. That's what I do nowadays.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah. I like that. Hey, notes, you coming at the end?
Basically. And Kundan, your last thoughts, your wrap up for
I feel like
everything.
For me, like as a Hindu, like, I'm also Buddhist and Sikh, but
Yeah.
specific to Hinduism, I feel like it's not so much that I've forgotten my past, but more that
Abdul.
our past collectively has been deliberately erased and rewritten. So for me, it's my journey of decolonizing, like I mentioned, like literally, like the crooked room is on a whole other level for me as a Hindu.
Mm,
Like everything is crooked for us, and everything we've been shown is crooked. And so it's literally a work of reclamation, of literally reclaiming
claiming.
the truth about my past. Like I mentioned to you before that, like when I talk about the difference between racism and casteism, at least black people know that they did not invent racism, right?
Mm,
But
mm-hmm.
with Hindus don't know that we did not invent casteism. There are so many Hindus who still believe that we invented it, even though it was the
Mm,
British and the Portuguese who invented casteism, twisted and manipulated our text, literally mistranslated our text into the way they wanted it to be, to make us think that we did this, that it's ours, it's not. And so that's just one example out of many where they twisted our horizontal system
yeah.
that we already had, which had a whole other purpose, into this hierarchical, vertical system, similar to the racism, which and then the fact that there is this new book called Cast Out by Isabel Wilkerson adds a whole other level to it. Which, by the way, other Black scholars have debunked that book as like not true, and that in fact she wouldn't allow other Black scholars to even interview her.
Mm,
Like there's one famous scholar who has called her out on Facebook. That's still that link is up for canceling an interview with her on the last minute after looking at the question. She's like, why would you not want to be questioned,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that erasure is constant. It's every day. Like
Mm,
it's erasure and rewriting of our past and our present. So for me, it's a work of like constantly reclaiming my past, constantly protecting my boundaries.
yes.
This is a daily, constant thing, and I think we have to remember that as racialized and colonized people, that it's not just on the individual level. For
Mm,
us, it's about collective level. That's why they're still trying to ban books and things like that. They're doing it to black people too. They want to erase the past so that they can rewrite it.
yes. Yes. And it's being done in the schools. It's being done in media all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not, again, attuned to this stuff happening, it's going to, in a blink of an eye. So, yes. Thank you, you two, for sharing. Again, thank you for always coming in when you can and sharing of your time. Because, again, time to me is so valuable. And when folks share that, I'm appreciative of that. So, give you both your flowers and say thank you. And I'm
I've always
grateful
got
for
time
it.
for you guys. Always.
Always appreciate it. And
Yes.
now, to wrap up, when it comes to current events, y'all, important thing to do is take some time, whether if you're not listening to it, if reading, or if you're just seeing it, to get yourself planned and prepared for what happens. Because at the end of the day, you never know what can come. And if you are at least properly prepared, you at least have some type of plan of action to not only protect yourselves, but family members and all your loved ones that are there. So please take time to know what's happening around you. Second, when it comes to forgetting your past, it can be for a number of reasons why you may want to forget the past. But know that in that sense of you trying to forget your past, there will always be some nugget of wisdom and a lesson that you get from it, that ultimately the signs still come up as life goes on. Whether if it slowly fades away or it doesn't, it's always great to know the origin and where that came from, so that then you can ultimately be able to learn from that origin and take that with you presently, so then you can create your path or your roadmap into the future. And lastly, how trauma affects your present, it does in a number of ways. Whether if you find ways to cope through, again, addictions, cope through various different things, knowing why you respond to people in certain ways, why you feel this heaviness, or how your behaviors end up stopping you from doing things. But know that even within that trauma, you have to be aware of what caused that or what is having that there, so that then you can slowly unpack your backpack, take your time to go through it, so then that you could also, on the go, be able to slowly heal and grow from that. Because ultimately, that's what we're here to do. It's not only to just be, but to grow and to share that with future and generations so that they can continue to grow beyond us. But with that, y'all, this has been another episode of What's the Word Wednesdays. I am so grateful again for having Chris coming through, as well as Kundan to come through and they share their thoughts with us, as well as all of y'all that have came and shared your thoughts here too. So thank y'all for being here and sticking around. And for those who want to see this later on Instagram and YouTube, please, on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to your boy at Avid Speaks, because then again, there's going to be more content like this happening and going on, as well as you can come in and say hi to me here too, even if you want to say hi later on. I know it's all good. So come through. It's always a great time here. And with that being said, we'll check y'all next Wednesday for another episode of What's the Word Wednesdays. I was checking my calendar to make sure. But with that, continue to love yourself, continue to work on yourself, and know that ultimately it's up to you to make the change that you want to end up making. With that, y'all, we'll see y'all next Wednesday. Peace.
Peace.